wanted to be mayor? Tom Bradley began the fight for lower bus and cab fares for the elderly. He helped the homeowners in the valley stop reckless development. He drafted a 6-point program to stop school violence, and it's already started to work. He helped the homeowners in the Pacific Palisades fight against oil drilling. He helped start daycare centers so working mothers could get off welfare and into good jobs. Elect Tom Bradley mayor. He'll work as hard for his paycheck as you do for yours.
KNXT Channel 2.
This is KNXT's newsroom. I'm Joseph Benty, and this is tonight's news. Any Los Angeles voters tonight who are shaking their heads, wondering if somehow they've been caught in a time warp, are not wrong. Much of what they heard from City Hall today had that familiar ring of 1969, and Warren Aldney can explain why. Warren?
Joe, just 4 years ago, Sam Yorty was condemning Tom Bradley by association and warning of what he called radical takeover should Bradley be elected. Today, he's doing exactly the same thing. At his news conference this morning, Yorty accused Bradley of being sort of a black nationalist. But here's what he said when he was asked what he meant. Could you be specific again about the black nationalism? You really didn't answer the question that was asked about whether or not you're saying that Mr. Bradley advocates segregation, suggests that blacks and whites can't live together, which is the philosophy of black nationalism, which you have said he's affiliated with. Now, does he do that or doesn't he?
I've never heard him say that, no, that... I'm not talking about, you're defining black nationalism.
How do you define it?
And, well, I think just a group of sort of militants and whatnot that apparently don't believe much in the United States and the way it's run. And that's what I meant by that.
Yorty also claimed that John Floyd, a minor figure in the Bradley campaign, was a founder of the Black Panther Party. Floyd told KNXT News he actually worked for Yorty in 1961 and 65 because he supported an end to the separating of garbage. He said he has talked about the Black Panther as a civil rights symbol, but that he's never been a member of the Black Panther Party.
I have never been a member of the Black Panther Party. I have never attended a meeting of the Black Panther Party, and that the principles for which they stand, I'm totally against. I have tried to work all my life within the system. I consider myself a good American, and that I have tried. I have tried to work, within my community, and I have worked in political campaigns for a lot of years, and that I am, visibly upset.
Today, a Yorty letter disguised as a telegram has been arriving in white neighborhoods around the city. It says the primary turnout in such areas wasn't very good. But in Watts, says the letter, the turnout was high. The black bloc vote was large. Radical elements, the so-called telegram continues, could control our police department. At his news conference, Bradley was asked if such tactics are hurting his chances.
My chances today are just as good or better than they were yesterday. And I would say that in answer to that question, it's a laugh. This is typical of Sam Yorty. He hasn't changed a bit in 12 years. He continues to come up with outrageous charges, totally unfounded, in fact. And I would suggest that you gentlemen and ladies of the press just ask him for some proof once in a while when he makes these kinds of charges. Yesterday, that was one charge. Tomorrow, we know there will be another. And I hope the people of this city are going to see through it and are going to recognize that these kinds of things are typical of Sam Yorty in the closing, desperate days of his campaign.
4 years ago, the poll showed Bradley leading right up till the end. A lot of people said playing on racial fears and charging radicalism won re-election for the mayor. This year, he obviously hopes that pattern will be repeated. Joe?
Warren, I might add for our viewers that tomorrow night, Tom Bradley will be our guest for a live interview, and then Friday night, Mayor Sam Yorty will be here.
There's a new grievance tonight in the mayor's race for Los Angeles with Election Day less than a week away. Mayor Yorty today charged that his opponent's campaign, quote, is secretly directed by the Black Panthers, unquote. At his City Hall news conference, the mayor read from an old newspaper article that quotes a current Bradley aide as being a founder of the Black Panther Party. The aide denies it. Yorty was asked by newsmen, including our Dick Carlson, what views the Panthers and Bradley share.
They have been very anti-police, and so is he. We have plenty of records. He fought with Chief Parker after the rioting. He asked for an outside study of the police department. He accused the police department of escalating the rioting, and as you know, he kept away from here while the rioting was going on.
What other evidence do you have to back up this association between Mr. Bradley and the Black Panthers?
I'll tell you something, there wouldn't be anything that would convince you. No matter if he said that he endorsed the Black Panthers, you wouldn't believe it. And
so you don't have any other evidence?
Yes, we have plenty of evidence.
Why don't you give it to us right here and now?
I can give you all the evidence, and I've put it out before, of how he's fought the police, and I say that's the link. That he's anti-police, and so are the Black Panthers.
Our Dick Carlson then went to candidate Tom Bradley and asked him for his reaction to the mayor's charge.
Oh, that's really a laugh. You know, there really isn't much of a Black Panther Party left in this country today, and there are none left in this city.
How would you characterize this kind of a charge, Mr. Bradley?
Well, it's typical of Sam Yorty, and that's what's so unfortunate. You know, he's tried to divert the people's attentions on next Tuesday from the fact that he's failed to deal with the question of transportation, of smog, of crime, and many other issues that face the city by simply trying to throw mud without any foundation, in fact, to back up any of his charges.
Moving in apparently opposite directions. That makes things look a little better for Bradley tonight than they did 4 years ago. Once again, though, the 20% undecided vote makes for a potentially volatile and definitely unpredictable situation. Tuesday's outcome may well depend on how well each candidate can turn out those groups who are known to support him. Joe?
Thank you, Warren. As you know, Councilman Bradley is our guest tonight, and we'll tell you very quickly that Mayor Yorty has agreed to be our guest tomorrow night. This is about your third or fourth visit of the campaign, Councilman. I remember the last time we talked, I tried to emphasize the point that I thought race was going to be the issue, and apparently it is now harder and hotter than it was in 1969.
Well, earlier in the campaign, it was not the central issue. Now it's very clear that the mayor is attempting to appeal to the voters on the basis of race. And what he is saying to the people, and I think this is important, he's saying to them, you know, you're racist. That's why I'm sending this telegram to you. That's why I'm making this appeal to you. And I think the people are outraged at that kind of insult.
How do you answer the fear, I'm told, especially in the San Fernando Valley, for example, or in West LA, where they're fearful of what happened in the East and the big cities, or part of the mayor's commercials on television, for example, what happened up in Berkeley. They look at Tom Bradley and they say he represents that, and how do you fight that fear?
Joe, you can't compare Los Angeles with any other city. Almost everything is different here than it is in a Berkeley or Cleveland or New York or any other city that you could think of.
But what reassurance do you give a voter that you don't represent that kind of politics?
My own record, 31 years service, 21 as a police officer, and 10 years on the city council. You know, anybody who looks at that record clearly knows how I stand and how I have served the people. Fairly, impartially, justly, and well for all parts of the city. I've gotten involved in those matters far beyond my district. And I think the people this time clearly recognize that, and I think it'll make a difference.
Does the fact that the mayor's strategy and the mayor's issue has become the focus of attention now in the last week of the campaign, does that suggest that you've been unsuccessful in your attempts to carry the campaign to him, to define the issues yourself, to put him on the defensive?
I think the last-minute effort on his part clearly represents desperation on his part. I think he clearly sees that he's doing poorly. He cannot talk about the issues. He cannot talk about transportation because he's been the one who's failed. He can't talk about crime because that's where he has been the failure. Can't talk about pollution or the overpopulation that is threatening the city. Can't talk about any of those issues, so he has to turn to something that will distract the voters' attention next Tuesday from the fact that he has failed.
He has managed to seize the initiative in the campaign, it would appear, however you want to judge the way in which he's done it.
I'd hate to call that initiative. If that's what you would call initiative, making that kind of blatant appeal to the fears of people, to the worst element in people, then I would say we don't need that in this city.
The pattern of his campaign is the same as it was 4 years ago. That time it worked.
This time I'm convinced it won't work. And, you know, as I moved about this city and talked to people, as I've perceived their reactions, and if you just look at the outrage of people who have called radio, television stations, and the newspapers, they clearly are outraged with what he has been doing. They're saying, you know, this man is calling me a racist. He's saying, I'm going to respond to this kind of an appeal, and they resent it, and rightfully so.
Councilman, in the last stages of the campaign, do you expect any big blockbusters? Are you going to drop any bombs between now and Tuesday on Mayor Yorty?
Who can ever predict? You know, the court just a few days ago destroyed one of his campaign pieces. We went to court today, and we got an order, an injunction against the new piece they put out, where they've entitled it approved by the Superior Court. And that's going to come up tomorrow morning in Superior Court at 10 o'clock, an order for them to take certain action with regard to that piece that they mailed out.
As you know, these are always very brief, and I'm sorry. Thank you for being our guest tonight.
Thank you.
The Yorty campaign telegram was very much on the mind of Councilman Tom Bradley, when he appeared before supporters in the Fairfax district of Los Angeles.
Tom Bradley, how are you? Good to see you. Hello, Tom. Thank you. Glad to see you. See you. Thank you.
That's my vote.
Thank you.
He told the senior citizens that they would, in his words, receive much more scurrilous material before Election Day.
We are seeing in the closing days of this campaign something that I think all of you ought to be aware of. You may have received a telegram in the mail yesterday or another piece of literature today, and perhaps tomorrow it will be something else. You may be prepared for the most outrageous lies ever seen in this city. There was a telegram delivered today that has so outraged people that even those who formerly were going to support my opponent have now said they simply cannot take it, and they're going to switch. The people of this city cannot be divided and yet have a mayor adequately serve all of the people. All of my life has been dedicated to the service of people, all of the people, wherever they may live. I'm going to continue that. I don't want to see this city divided on the basis of race or religion.
Bradley stopped just short of accusing the mayor of conducting a racist campaign. But he did say the type material being distributed by Yorty people could divide the city along racial lines if they believed what the telegram said. Warren Wilson, KNBC News, in the Fairfax district.
KNBC, Los Angeles. This is the KNBC News Service sign-off edition for Saturday morning, the 26th of May. The time is now 2:30. Mayor Yorty talked about his acceptance of a controversial gift earlier this evening during an interview on Channel 4. It concerned a $50,000 insurance policy purchased for Yorty in 1965. The policy was paid for by cashier's checks made out to Deputy Mayor Joe Quinn as trustee of the policy. When confronted with the issue, Mr. Yorty first said he bought the checks with money he earned. Later, he said the money came from a testimonial. Channel 4 newsman Bob Abernathy asked the mayor why he said he earned the money.
For one thing, it was kind of confusing because I had never had a chance to really talk with them about how they handled the gift. It was a gift to my wife, but I felt, and I still feel that I still feel that I earned it because, well, I took a big cut in income to become mayor, and worked very hard in those first 4 years. Found out that I had to close up my law practice and rely on just the salary. So Eleanor Chambers and others knew about it, and they said the funds were mine legally.
Yes.
And I felt that I've earned them. I still do.
You mean earned it as mayor?
Right.
You think the mayor should be paid over a period of 4 years $50,000 more than you were now making than you're making?
Well, I certainly do, because at that time the salary was $25,000 a year, and that's not take-home pay, and it was pretty difficult for me because I had to take a big cut. I have no right to complain because I ran for the office.
Councilman Wax said today that over the last 10 or 12 years you've received $1 million in personal gifts at these testimonial dinners. Is that anywhere near true?
Oh, I don't think it's any place near true.
Do you know how much you've received?
No, because I never handled the money. I didn't handle this either, you know.
Mayor Yorty admitted Friday that $50,000 to buy insurance on his own life came from testimonial dinner funds, a direct contradiction to his statement Thursday that he earned the money himself. Here's what he said Thursday.
Not a political fund, no.
You were able to get $50,000 and buy it in advance, put $50,000 in an insurance policy down in one time?
That's the biggest investment we have, and we had to decide what we were going to do to protect Beth, because I didn't have proper insurance, and now she has, and that's the end of that.
Did you draw that from the bank, Mayor Yorty?
That's none of anybody's business. It's our own money.
No,
I don't care to talk about it anymore. It's a very personal matter, how you protect your family when you're in a job like this.
Today, though, it appeared the matter was not so personal after all. The mayor admitted the money came from a dinner fund administered by a committee including Deputy Mayor Joseph Quinn and former Deputy Mayor Eleanor Chambers. Here's today's answer to the question, did the money come from the fund?
According to Joe Quinn, yes, because he handled the thing, it turns out. I didn't know because, you know, it was supposed to be a surprise gift, and I don't think I would have known about it at all except I had to go take a physical.
Well, do you think that the people who contributed to the testimonial dinner fund did so knowing that it was going to be used for purposes such as this?
Well, they would be the only ones to complain. They made the contributions, and it said plainly on the slip that it was a gift to be used by the committee in any way they saw fit. And the committee saw fit to insure my life, which I'm glad is still going on, that the insurance wasn't paid. But it was a great comfort to have bets protected.
Well, now, you said yesterday that it came out of your own funds, and then when you were asked about that, you said it was money that you earned personally.
Well, I think I earned the right to have an insurance policy because at that time I'd been mayor 4 years, and it was before the salary was raised at all. And having taken the cut, it was pretty rough for me.
This is the big news for Saturday, May 26th, with Cleet Roberts.
Angeles City Councilman Joel Wax has added fuel to the fire he set under Mayor Yorty 2 days ago. Wax today claimed there is a strong possibility the mayor did not pay federal income tax on $50,000 used to buy a life insurance policy for him in 1965. When Wax first questioned the source of the money on Thursday, the mayor claimed it was money he earned himself. Yesterday, Yorty admitted the $50,000 came from a testimonial dinner and dinner gifts, I should say, collected through the years. The life insurance policy was purchased with 10 cashier's checks made out to Deputy Mayor Joe Quinn. Councilman Wax has asked the Internal Revenue Service to investigate his charges of possible tax evasion. Bill Diaz was on the campaign trail with candidates Bradley and Yorty today, and charges and countercharges figured prominently, did they not, Bill?
They sure did, and Mayor Yorty apparently chose to ignore another charge by his opponents, namely that he campaigns in city helicopters at city expense. He flew out to the valley for a celebration at his Mission Hills campaign headquarters, where I asked him if the recent charges had put him on the defensive.
Oh, I certainly think we're on the offensive. There's been nothing said or done to put us on the defensive.
Councilman Wax made some new charges today about the life insurance policy. What do you think about his attack and how that will affect your chances?
Oh, none at all. You know, he reminds me of a little arsonist that looks at a fire and gets all excited. And I think he loves to see himself on the tune.
The mayor then made his way through the crowd and up to higher ground where he could talk to all of them. He criticized the press for what he termed its negative treatment of him during the last week of the campaign, and he said this is the worst campaign he can remember for wild accusations by his opponents. Councilman Bradley, meanwhile, met with a group of consumer organizers earlier in the day. They presented him with the Shrinking Dollar Award for what they call Bradley's unceasing fight to establish a consumer bureau in the city. Bradley feels the mayor is now on the defensive in the campaign, and he had more questions about that $50,000 insurance policy.
Well, I think the public has some question about what the source was of that money. Who gave it? And was it actually for educational purposes? If so, why did he divert it to the personal use to buy insurance? Why did they use the device of having 10 cashier's checks paid out to another person, Joe Quinn, then signed over to Mrs. Yorty? You know, all of us have to take care of our wives and provide for insurance, but we do it on a regular monthly basis out of our earnings. We don't depend upon somebody giving us a $50,000 gift to buy insurance. And I think the public really has a right to know the source of that money and all that happened in connection with it.
Tuesday, Election Day, is fast approaching amid more charges and countercharges. One campaign watcher told me he hates the end of the campaign because all the heat and smoke seems to obscure the real issues. But then he said, that's politics. Cleet?
That's the truth. Thank you, William.
This is the 11 o'clock report with Cleet Roberts.
Yorty and Councilman Tom Bradley faced each other in the third and final of their series of televised debates tonight. The tone was far more serious than their first meeting, which was televised here on KNXT earlier this month. Tonight, issues were in the forefront, but personalities were never far out of sight. Mayor Yorty was questioned closely but inconclusively about his just-revealed $50,000 life insurance policy. The mayor insisted the policy was a gift and proper use of campaign funds collected over the years. There were few exchanges between Bradley and Yorty, one of them coming when Yorty was asked if his portrayal of Bradley as a black nationalist and a radical wasn't a last-moment campaign smear.
Associations that I regard as pretty radical, that's signing the call for the new mobilization, trying to get 500,000 people to march on Washington and 250,000 on San Francisco, this Roger Baldwin fund trying to raise money to push police complaints and all that sort of thing. I don't think it'd be good for the city of L.A.
Mr. Mayor, Councilman, would you like to respond to that?
Yes. It's really, it's ludicrous. The new mobilization was an effort in connection with the war in Vietnam. It was supported by almost every Democratic office holder in this country, starting with Senator Muskie and right down the line. Now, I don't see anything sinister about that. We were very much concerned about the war and wanted somehow to bring it to a close. I'm pleased that it has now come to a close. Now, to suggest there's something sinister about that kind of association is typical of what we've been seeing in this campaign. Use of names without any proof whatsoever that there's anything wrong with it, trying to suggest, to strike fear into people by this kind of innuendo. I think it's wrong.
Both Bradley and Yorty said they were hoping for large turnouts for the election Tuesday. They agreed on only one other thing. Both said they think Los Angeles is a fine city.
Newsroom, I'm Joseph Benty, and this is tonight's news.
Yeah. Each campaign claims that thousands of precinct workers are sleeping tonight with voter kits under their pillows, resting up to drag supporters to the polls tomorrow. That sounds a little silly, but this election is so close that those people may really make the difference, those precinct workers. The candidates themselves were looking for something to do all day today. Mayor Yorty got into the Canoga Park Memorial Day Parade. He was sporting his American Legion cap and waving confidently and patriotically. His campaign must get a strong turnout there in the valley if he's to win, and he's supposed to have some county Republicans coming into the city to help him out. Yorty's campaign manager, Henry Salvatore, took a full-page ad in 3 newspapers today, repeating the charges that Bradley is tied to the Black Panthers, Las Vegas gamblers, and police criticism. Salvatore says Bradley has lied before when he has denied these allegations. Bradley denied them again and renewed some charges of his own, claiming the mayor doesn't support the police enough and charging that the administration of City Hall lacks integrity. He also reiterated his attack on Yorty for accepting a $50,000 life insurance policy paid for with testimonial dinner gifts.
He first said that that was purchased out of his personal funds, out of money that he earned. Only a day later to contradict that statement by saying, well, it came from another source. What is that source? Why aren't the books opened up today so that the people can see where the money came from, its source, and how it was appropriated to purchase $50,000 insurance on a cash basis?
For his part, Yorty hasn't changed his contention that the money is his personally and that it does not need to be accounted for. So, Joe, it's sort of ending the way it began with personal attacks and recriminations, and maybe we'll be glad to see it over.
Well, our coverage begins at 6 o'clock tomorrow with the big news, and then we'll have intermittent coverage throughout the evening, and by about 10:30, I guess, Warren will be here. I'll be down at City Hall, and as a kind of prelude, what are you going to be looking for? Where are the hot areas? You mentioned the Valley, for example.
Yeah, the Valley is an interesting area. Sure, that's a Yorty area, and as we've talked about before, the Yorty strength is supposed to come from the east side also, whereas Bradley looks strong, has to turn out the black vote in the southern part of the city, has to turn out the west side. One of the interesting things, and one of the things Rex Layton, the city clerk, says he can't calculate at all in advance, is the effect of the holiday. There's never been a holiday right before Election Day before. The absentee ballots are up enormously. We don't know if that's because a lot of people are staying away another day, and consequently that might bring the vote total turnout down. We don't know if people will be tired and not want to go to the polls, so that's one of the things we're looking for.
Well, as we often say, we'll tell you what happens tomorrow evening, beginning at 6 o'clock on the big news, and intermittently throughout the night, and then at about 10:30 beginning full coverage from City Hall and all around the city of the election tomorrow.
Good morning. This is the KNBC News Service sign-off edition. The time in 20 seconds, 10 minutes after 1 in the morning. And on this day, Tuesday, the 29th, 1973, the people of Los Angeles will select their mayor for the next 4 years. The final polls show Councilman Tom Bradley slightly ahead of incumbent Sam Yorty. Yesterday, Mayor Yorty went to Canoga Park, urging a high turnout in the white communities.
I hope that in the white areas where I'm stronger, that they don't stay home, because if they do, the block vote will carry the day.
Some have said this is a racist appeal.
Certainly a racist appeal in the black area. Boy, they really put the pressure on down there.
After a meeting with his staff at the Canoga Park headquarters, Yorty and his wife Betts rode in the community's Memorial Day parade. Tom Bradley opened the final day of campaigning with a fireman's memorial, then talked with newsmen.
I'm going to have to leave. I'm sorry. They've been trying to give me the signal here for a few minutes. I think that it's appropriate as we celebrate Memorial Day and pay tribute to the many men and women who laid down their lives in defense of this country that we make one additional connection between their fight for freedom and what democracy really means in this country. That precious right of a free and fair election. Ability of the people, the opportunity to choose their leaders fairly and justly on the basis of issues.
Councilman Bradley finished his quest for votes at the top of the new Santa Monica Mountains Urban Park. Bradley, Senator Alan Cranston, and Congressman Alfonso Bell led a group of scouts on a short hike in the park, which will open later this year. Bradley made ecology an issue in his campaign, so it was appropriate that he and his politicking end his politicking before today's election in a park.
Did have a low voter turnout. The fact of the matter is that before this election occurred, that Tom Bradley thought a low voter turnout would help him, and it did. And Sam Yorty, for the past 4 or 5 days, as you probably know if you've been watching programs on this channel or any other channel or reading the newspaper, Sam Yorty has been trying to get a very large voter turnout, thinking that in this predominantly white city, that the larger the vote turnout, the better off he would be. And tonight he directly attributed what appears to be his loss to the fact that there was a low voter turnout.
One of the reasons, though, for that low voter turnout may very well be what we have been talking about for the last week or so. There seems to have been developing a certain backlash to some of Mayor Yorty's campaign tactics, the charge of racism, some of the other charges that resulted there. But I have a sneaking suspicion that many of the people who were offended by that kind of campaign tactic, and you know, they wrote and called us, and there were people who said, I don't like this mailing, I can't vote for him, were still people who felt they could not vote for Tom Bradley, so indeed they did stay home.
This is a truly remarkable thing that Bradley has done. There are the percentage of blacks in this city is about 15% of the electorate. In cities around the country, Cleveland, Newark, other cities, the percentage of blacks in the city has to get up to around 40% or something like that, or more, before a black man traditionally has been able to be elected mayor. Here, Councilman Bradley has done it here in this large, enormous city, and with this very small percentage of blacks. I think what will happen now is what we were predicting would happen 4 years ago if Councilman Bradley was elected. He will become a national figure because there will be a great deal of attention paid, I would imagine, to someone who has done this apparently remarkable thing that Bradley has done.
He will be a national figure, and he will be subject to a great deal of pressure at City Hall as well. We'll be talking about those things and giving you still more vote returns when we continue from KNBC News, the election coverage, in just a moment.
All of you loyal workers, the trend at the moment doesn't look very good, but I don't want to keep you up all night because it's going to be all night before we know how this thing is really coming out. Because of the computer, they dump so many ballots in at one time and things change very fast. But I would be less than frank if I didn't tell you that I don't like the looks of the trend. I was very disappointed at the lack of votes in the Valley. Not that we won't carry the Valley, but I think they voted like something 40%. Which is ridiculous, and we needed the Valley, and they needed to get out and vote. But the election will be decided probably as much by those who stayed home as those who got out and voted. And so I don't want to keep you waiting around here all night. This thing is probably going to seesaw back and forth, but the trend is against us. But if it continues that way and Bradley wins, we'll have the satisfaction of knowing that we've given this city 12 years the best government it ever had. The change, if it takes place, will be a very radical one, and there'll be a lot of people who wish they'd gone out to vote. That's my prediction. Thank you, sir.
The very durable Mayor Sam Yorty, in office for 12 years, tonight has been defeated by City Councilman Tom Bradley in their rematch. 4 years ago, of course, Tom Bradley was defeated by Mayor Sam Yorty.
Perhaps Councilman Bradley would become mayor of Los Angeles. There's been a lot of talk all of a sudden seemed to sweep this hall about Councilman Bradley on a national ticket. As a matter of fact, a lot of people are wearing these little buttons, and they read Ted and Tom in 72. They were printed in 1969, looking forward to the Democratic Convention of 1972 and the ticket of Ted Kennedy and Tom Bradley. A lot of people have crossed off the 72 and marked in 76. The other feeling that has swept this hall in the last 30 minutes is one of consternation and one of great disappointment on the part, we understand, of Councilman Bradley and his advisor. And that disappointment has to do with the remarks by Mayor Yorty a few moments ago. At one point earlier this evening, I had talked to Nelson Rising, an advisor for Councilman Bradley, and he thought that if Mayor Yorty lost this election, he would take the loss graciously. The remarks a few minutes ago indicate that perhaps the mayor will not. That has caused great bitterness amongst Bradley advisors and amongst his key aides, and we understand that the councilman himself is pondering how to respond to those remarks of Mayor Yorty, which he made about 35 minutes ago. That's about all I think I dare add from a situation like this. This is Bob Navarro at Bradley headquarters, returning you now to Jerry Dunphy at KNXT Election Central.
Yes, Bob, if you can still hear me there. If you know Mayor Yorty, he's never taken anything very quietly. And I don't think he's about to take this non-concession situation on his part any more quietly or without some effusiveness as has been his custom in the past.
For a wrap-up on the mood at the Yorty headquarters at this hour, let's go now to KNBC's John Marshall. John?
Well, as you can see, more than half of the people here at the Yorty headquarters have gone home in disappointment, and the rest of them are here, and they're every bit as disappointed. We've been told that the mayor will make no more public statements to the media tonight, and it's still uncertain exactly when and where and how he's going to make any public statements tomorrow. It was planned earlier this week that the regular Wednesday news conference will not be held at City Hall tomorrow. However, we are told that the mayor does have a lot to say, and he'll pick his own time and place to do exactly that. It's been quite a tough evening for the mayor, as you might guess. He's a man who liked being mayor. He was mayor for 12 years, and he liked doing it. I guess everybody knew that. He came a long way from the year 1931 when he came to Los Angeles as a Nebraska farm boy with $87 in his pocket. He went on in the mid-30s to become elected to the state assembly. He served as a U.S. congressman and then 12 years as mayor of the city of Los Angeles. He never actually discussed what he would do if defeated, because he never considered it a real possibility. At least he never told his aides that he ever did so. He never discussed what he would do if he was defeated, but the aides themselves, who are closest to Sam Yorty, say that the odds are he probably will go into private law practice. Of course, all of that is quite uncertain at this hour tonight. One thing that is most certain is that the Yorty years are over, and that's the story tonight. This is John Marshall at the Yorty headquarters at the Biltmore Hotel.
This is the Reverend H.H. Brookins, who is a prominent minister in the black neighborhoods of Los Angeles. Apparently, he is getting ready to introduce the mayor-elect, City Councilman Tom Bradley, and if I'm correct, I think that the Reverend Brookins serves the church in City Councilman Bradley's district. The councilman has not made an appearance or even a public statement this evening, although as early as 8 o'clock, NBC News projected that he would be elected mayor of Los Angeles. He has had a commanding lead all evening. The Bradley headquarters at the Los Angeles Hilton, which is downtown Los Angeles. The crowd getting restless, savoring victory all day, now realizing it and wanting to see their candidate, the new mayor of Los Angeles, Tom Bradley.
Ladies and gentlemen.
Reverend Brookins is apparently trying to deliver one statement, as he puts it.
Ladies and
the
gentlemen.
people will have no part of it. They want Tom Bradley.
kindly move back from the stage.
Something may be going on that we are not privileged to know about at this hour. There are now policemen on the stage holding back the crowd that has surged forward, as you can see. The Reverend Brookins conferring with the man who served the campaign. The people want Tom Bradley, and there he is, the new mayor of the city of Los Angeles, City Councilman Tom Bradley. To the right of the podium as you look there is City Councilman Joel Wax, who of course was instrumental in the election of Tom Bradley, according to the Yorty forces with his disclosure of the life insurance policy. That is Mr. and Mrs. Tom Bradley. Mrs. Bradley now the first lady of the city, if you will, replacing Bets Yorty in that role. Reverend Brookins whispering something to Tom Bradley, who is smiling, waving, but not saying anything. Bradley, a former UCLA track star, for 21 years a Los Angeles policeman up through the ranks to lieutenant. A law graduate then by going to school nights, elected to the city council. Took his first crack at citywide office when he took on Mayor Yorty 4 years ago. And tonight, in a rematch,
Ladies and gentlemen,
in a dramatic victory,
it's been a long
has been elected
time.
mayor.
It's been a Ladies and gentlemen, it's been a long time coming, but it is my honor and my privilege now to present to you the mayor of all of the city of Los Angeles, Honorable Thomas Bradley.
I want to thank Bishop Brookins for the introduction. Yes. Yeah. Formerly my minister, my mentor, and the man who started this whole thing for me in 1960. We've come a long way. The mood, the spirit in this hall tonight the spirit here tonight almost calls for an emotional kind of speech to you. But this moment in history is so heavy with drama that it hardly requires that we build your emotions tonight. I simply want to thank you. I want to thank those who stand on this stage and those who were part of the campaign, who made all of this possible.
White House is next.
I want to... I'm not going to try to single out people tonight for the purpose of identifying their role, the part they played in this campaign, because there are too many, and I wouldn't want to miss any. But there is a man who is not able to be with us tonight because he is in Israel. He had to leave us a week ago for the purpose of dedicating a library in honor of his mother and father. Max Palevsky, our chairman. And I want to thank my family. My wife Ethel and my daughters Lorraine and Phyllis. They have had to bear the burden, have had to make the kinds of sacrifices that few in this city will ever know. But most of all, my friends, I want to thank you and all of the people of this city. I want to thank you for giving me a chance.
Oh, it's so sweet.
Just as I have asked for a fair chance in this campaign, a fair chance to serve you, and that answer has been given, I ask you now that you work with me and that we together begin to make this not just a good city, but a great city. And we can and we will. No one man can do it alone. But I know that with the help, with the support, with the inspiration which all of the people of this city have given and will give, that we will make Los Angeles the jewel of the Pacific Coast Basin and one of the great cities of the world. Because I think that Los Angeles is still the one big city that still has the power, the possibility of saving itself from the kind of decay and deterioration that has overcome many cities in this country. With your help, I know that we will. And now, as we close, as the celebration ends, let us look forward to tomorrow with the knowledge that the victory which has come tonight is not just a victory for Tom Bradley, not just a victory for the campaign, but a victory for progress, a victory for our children. Thank you very much.
Bradley, normally a non-emotional man, and that is probably as emotional as you'll ever see him. He'll know on July 1st, when he takes office, the difference between the ease of campaign promises and the harsh realities of being in office. Tom Bradley, more than most mayors probably, will endure some special pressures in the first few months that he's in office. It is a remarkable victory. 8 years after the Watts riots, one of the most dramatic and destructive domestic uprisings of modern times, a black man has been elected mayor of the city in which it occurred, a city that is still predominantly white. Maybe this election tonight, the election of Tom Bradley as mayor of Los Angeles, more than anything else we've witnessed recently, is a sign of the change that we have all undergone.
morning. A spindrift beginning today, fishing off the coast of Maryland. Tom Bradley is the new mayor of Los Angeles. He beat Sam Yorty badly. Bradley is the son of a Texas sharecropper, a retired police lieutenant, and the first black mayor Los Angeles has had. We'll have a report from Los Angeles in a couple of minutes.
On the CBS Morning News with John Hart in New York and Nelson Benton in Washington. Now, here is CBS News correspondent John Hart.
Tom Bradley beat Sam Yorty by 12 points yesterday, becoming mayor of Los Angeles with 56% of the votes to Yorty's 44. Terry Drinkwater reports.
For a dozen years, Yorty has been campaigning here, once even for the presidency. Everyone expected he would be defeated in that abortive effort, but the loss of his city hall job last night was a surprise. Yorty had made race an issue, but unlike the campaign of 4 years ago, it didn't work, and this time Bradley won.
The trend is against us, but if it continues that way and Bradley wins, we'll have the satisfaction of knowing that we've given this city 12 years the best government it ever had. The change, if it takes place, will be a very radical one, and there'll be a lot of people who wish they'd gone out to vote. That's my prediction.
The black vote did not defeat Yorty. Los Angeles has only a small black population. 70% of Bradley's vote was from whites. Tom Bradley, former policeman, a lawyer, city councilman, the son of Texas sharecroppers, elected student body president of his high school, and now mayor.
The people of this great city have given me a chance to prove myself. And tonight, was the fulfillment of a dream, the impossible dream. Because the people of this city have given to me the highest honor that can be given to any citizen of our city, the office of mayor.
Last night, Bradley listed the first of his priorities as rapid transit. This most sprawling of American cities is totally without any fast way of getting around except the automobile. And now congestion and gasoline shortages make rapid transit mandatory. On smog, too, and crime, Bradley made pledges. But his solutions are not radical. Despite Yorty's efforts to link Bradley to the Panthers and black nationalism, he is basically a moderate, soft-spoken, reflective. When Tom Bradley is inaugurated at City Hall, he will become the chief executive of the largest city in the country ever to have a black mayor. Terry Drinkwater, CBS News, Los Angeles.
This is the KNBC News Service sign-off edition for Thursday, the 31st of May. The time is now 1 o'clock. Tom Bradley's victory over three-time incumbent Mayor Sam Yorty yesterday was by a 56 to 44% margin. A breakdown of the voting shows the mayor-elect's strength was greatest in the three districts represented by black councilmen. Channel 4 reporter Warren Wilson talked to people in these districts, and here's what he found.
Headlines on the morning newspapers herald a new beginning in the eyes of some of these people. These were typical comments on the morning after their man had been elected.
I'm glad there has been a change because seemingly we were in a rut. And if anyone can get it out of the rut, I think it would be Tom Bradley.
Well, I think it's going to be better for as the police department is concerned. It's going to be better for the citizens. And I think it's going to be better.
People who hold political positions now will have to test him to see if he's for real. And I mean by putting him under stresses and pressures that he wouldn't normally be under if he were not black.
But I hope not happen to Tom Bradley. I'm keeping flying across for nothing not to happen to him. Praise the good Lord for nothing not to happen to him.
Some people say they feel that Bradley will have to prove that there is still honesty in government, and they hope the campaign has not damaged the city beyond recovery.
I think that maybe that since they have got a black man in office, that they will get more unity between blacks and whites.
You think that's needed here?
Yeah, I think it's needed very bad.
The voting returns also show Bradley carried a generally liberal west side of the city, the Harbor area, and the Griffith Park area. The mayor-elect held his first news conference yesterday, and he pledged to serve all the people of Los Angeles. KNBC's Saul Halpert has more.
At a morning after news conference, the mayor-elect credited his victory in part to voter backlash against what he called Mayor Yorty's unprincipled campaign style. The first black man to become mayor of a major city with a predominantly white electorate reads this meaning into the election results.
Here's a major city where the people have been willing to listen to the candidates, to watch them, to observe their records, and to make their judgment on the basis of the man instead of his race or color or creed. I think that's the fundamental goal that all of us in this country have been seeking.
A questioner recalled Mayor Yorty's warning that Bradley would bring radical change to Los Angeles.
If he means that we're going to have a working mayor who is concerned about all of the people of this city, who's going to work as hard for his paycheck as the other citizens of this city, yes, that will be a radical change.
Saul Halpert, KNBC News.
Councilman Bradley takes over July 1st. Both he and Mayor Yorty say they expect a smooth transition. Yorty has not yet offered any congratulations to Bradley, but in his own news conference he said he was not surprised at the outcome. Mayor Yorty held his post-election news conference at City Hall. He conceded defeat, something he didn't do last night, and promised to help Bradley move into the mayor's job.
We've had a very good administration. I think someday it will be more appreciated than it is now when people look back upon all we've accomplished in the last 12 years. And certainly I don't want to see that progress diminished. I want to see it accelerated, and anything I can do to help Mr. Bradley, I'm certainly going to do. I want to see a smooth transition and the city to go on running smoothly. So he's very welcome to consult with me, and anything I can do, I'll help him.
Locally, there was a meeting. It wasn't historic, but it was friendly. Warren Olney was there. Warren.
So first of all, Tom Bradley pledged that he would not have a staff of cronies, and he's trying to make good on that. We got some idea of how he's beginning. Some think tank consultants, urban specialists at Washington, and an Eastern University professor are helping him look around the country for professional administrators for his personal staff. He also wants corporations to lend him executives. But he isn't the mayor of Los Angeles yet. Today, he finally shook hands with the man who still is. Bradley said he was concerned about keeping track of ongoing programs, which require continuous monitoring and the meeting of administrative deadlines. But for a week, neither he nor Mayor Yorty would swallow enough pride to make the appointment, till finally Bradley made the move. Even today, Yorty allowed no cameras or reporters to record the event, but afterwards he offered Bradley the Yorty News Conference room he equipped for himself 12 years ago. And when Bradley met with reporters, he said the meeting went well.
I just finished a very cordial meeting with Mayor Yorty to talk about the transition between his administration and mine. We have reached agreement on everything that was discussed this morning, and I think that it was a very productive meeting. We're going to be arranging for assignment of some staff, coordination with other people to talk about the ongoing program so that there will be no hitch between the time that he leaves and I take over.
Can you tell us what your personal feelings are about him at the moment?
Well, you know, the past is the past. The campaign is over, and we started today on a very good note, friendly, cordial, cooperative spirit. That's the way I'd like to see it remain, and I therefore wouldn't like to even refer to the past or any personal feeling.
An hour or so after Bradley left, Mayor Yorty finally met the press. He said he'd advised the mayor-elect to be careful with his time, and said he isn't bitter to have lost his fourth term.
Well, I've never been personally bitter. I naturally resent some of the things that are said about you, you know, making out that you're not a working mayor and and it can solve the transportation problem overnight and all this sort of thing.
How do you think the two of you are going to get along in the next couple of weeks? He said that you'd agree to meet with him whenever you want.
Well, I'm going to help him all I can, because that's not only in his best interest, that's for the best interest of the city.
A couple of times each man had to swallow the urge to repeat a campaign charge, but they both managed. And Joe, apparently the transition from Yorty to Bradley is smoothly underway.
They did not shake hands publicly, though.
Not publicly, no. The mayor wouldn't allow a picture to be taken, but Tom Bradley said they did indeed shake hands, so we'll take it on faith.
Okay, Warren.
Well, I don't know what should be or what shouldn't be. I think what you find is that emerging nationalities, when they are just beginning to really get into the mainstream of America, follow block voting patterns. I don't think the Jewish vote does that. I think the Jewish vote has been very
That's not a Democratic vote or a Republican
It's
vote?
pretty much a Democratic vote, but not consistently. President Nixon cut into that vote fairly well last fall, and when I mentioned that Bert Pines is Jewish, I think that I did not intend to imply that Jews vote as a bloc. I do not think they do, generally. And they are very, very concerned and involved voters. They are a great impact on any constituency, because they're better educated and they turn out, and you don't have to go turn them out. And interestingly enough, the black vote in this city has begun to do that too, and they particularly turn out when there's a black candidate. They really turn out in both the primary and this runoff.
You feel that the Los Angeles Times was quite effective in torpedoing Yorty, yet the Los Angeles Times endorsed Arnberg, and he's not the winner. How do you account?
Well, the right hand doesn't always know what the left hand is doing in newspapers as well as in politics and government. And I think the editorial page of the LA Times does not always bear much resemblance to the front page. I think the reportorial staff on the Times went heavily after Arnberg in this race, not unjustifiably. I think they brought up very salient and significant things about him. But I think that I don't think that race can be explained on that basis.
Well, I don't mean to be a defender of the Times, but I think what it indicates is that
believe me, the Times needs no defender.